Our speaker tonight is Mike Wilson. Mike's from the Manufacturing Technology Centre. It's based just outside Coventry. He's got lots of experience, several years of experience in the application of automation and robotics across a range of industry sectors. Tonight you can see that he's going to talk about the importance of robotics and also automation and the opportunities really for UK manufacturing. Something we're very keen on as well. I'm from the Trade Association for the Castings Industry, and we're talking to Mike separately about how we can make sure our foundries get engaged and take up the opportunities. There are lots of challenges in manufacturing at the moment, and I think we're going to hear tonight how automation and robotics can help to be part of the solution. So I'm looking forward to a really interesting discussion. Thanks for joining us tonight. And I say, just a reminder, if you have questions, that you can put them into the chat, or you can put your hand up and we'll try and look out for that. So I think, Mike, without further ado, we'll hand over to you. And yeah, looking forward to hearing what you've got to say for us tonight.
Great, thank you, Pam, and good evening, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here. Pam was very kind when she suggested I had a few years' experience. It's actually over 40 years now, because I am as old as I look, things have changed an awful lot over the time of those 40 years, and hopefully I'll kind of give you a flavour of kind of where we are now and what the future might look like. So I am going to kind of give you a brief introduction. I want to talk a little bit about the benefits of robot automation, because I'm not sure everybody really understands why they ought to be considering this kind of technology. I then want to touch on where we are in the UK, and then I'm going to talk more about the MTC automation robotics activities, and mainly how we're actually helping industry apply these kind of technologies, and then we'll wrap it up at the end. And I'm very happy to have a discussion once we've finished. Just to give you a very brief intro to the MTC, we've been around for about 13 years now, and we were created as an independent research and technology organization to bridge what's called the Valley of Death. So we sit between academia and industry, and we're really there to help understand the challenges industry faces and feed those into academia, and to take what academia is developing and develop that to the point where industry can actually apply the technologies. So it is about developing, proving innovative ideas and systems. And one important element that we've been undertaking, not since we started, but partway in, is we now have an apprentice school, and we're developing future skills programs, because there was a recognition it's all very well developing the technology, but unless you develop the personnel with the skills to apply and use that technology, we're not going to be successful. So fundamentally, the MTC is there to help industry get better, get stronger, using ideas from academia. And one of the things I will come back to, we are independent. We're a non-profit organization, so we have no particular axe to grind. We are there honestly to help. So that was a quick introduction to the MTC. Why are we even thinking about robots automation? What are the kind of things that it can help with? So you may well be aware that our productivity in the UK is significantly behind our major competitors, and the only way of addressing that really is to apply technologies, and we're not very good at that. One of the things I stress here, and that's why it's in a different colour, since Brexit, since COVID, we've actually had significant labour shortages throughout all of the UK economy, but in particular in manufacturing. I know Make UK talked about before Christmas there was 72,000 manufacturing vacancies that were unfilled in the UK, and that's a lost opportunity. We're not producing the output that those jobs could produce, and therefore we're not going to fill those with people, because we just don't have the workforce to do it. We need to look at automation and robotics as an alternative to trying to employ lots more people. Wages continue to increase, and the minimum wage is going up in the not too distant future, and that's driving all wages up. So it is a challenge again about making sure that we use people efficiently where we can afford to pay them to do those kind of jobs, and where we can't afford to pay, we should be looking at using automation. Obviously, COVID had all sorts of impact on manufacturing, and by using automation, we can separate the jobs, we can separate the tasks, we can make environments more COVID resilience for future pandemics and such like, and they will come again. And I think one significant opportunity is actually in reshoring. We have the opportunity today to bring more manufacturing back to the UK. Lots of businesses are facing issues with their supply chains, not only COVID, but things like the war in Ukraine, what's going on in Israel and Gaza at the moment, affecting the Suez Canal, boats, simply things like boats getting stuck in the Suez Canal. All of that has had an impact on our extended supply chains. And lots of businesses are starting to think about how can we bring that manufacturing back, which is all positive for the UK economy. But the only way we're going to successfully do that is by greater use of robotics and automation. And ultimately, we want our manufacturing to be competitive. It's a very important sector for the UK economy. It supports a significant number of jobs. It supports significant amount of R&D, and it generates a lot of exports. And we need to find ways of ensuring that it's competitive going forward. And the only way really of doing that is by making it productive and using robots and automation to do that. There are a couple of stats on the bottom of that page, just to give you a flavour of what this all might be worth. Made Smarter did a study back in 2017 looking at the impact of various technologies on manufacturing and other industries. And they concluded that robotics and automation over the 10 years from 2017, if we applied it to the same level that was possible, and it is taking place in other countries, could be worth over 180 billion pounds to the UK economy. So a very significant impact, a big return on the investment. Copenhagen Business School did a study looking at automation and productivity across a whole range of industry sectors and a whole range of European countries. And the UK was last in terms of productivity in almost all of those sectors. What they then did was model what would happen if we automated just to the same level as the most automated country in each sector. And that led to a productivity increase of over 22%. That would more than close the gap with all of our competitors. It would put us in the lead. So only by doing what they're doing in the rest of Europe can we actually take a leadership position. So it just kind of shows you what the potential is if we apply robots and automation technology to the kind of level that other countries are doing. So hopefully that kind of sets the context, if you like, of the benefits. But talking specifically what it would mean to a business, yes, it does improve productivity, but it's largely about increasing the yield, getting more out for what you put in. Improving the utilization of other equipment. As an example, a typical machine tool is operating at something like 60, maybe 70% utilization if it's being unloaded and reloaded manually. If you can automate that, you can get that utilization up to 90%. So you get much more out of your existing machines. It's also about better utilization of staff, and I'll come back to that. But in our workforce, we have lots of people that are not adding value to the product. They're simply moving things around in the factory. And if we can automate those kind of tasks and use the people we've got where they add value, we'll get much more value out of those staff. Automation also leads to consistency. To be fair, if you get it set up wrong, you get consistent garbage. But if it's set up right, you get consistent high quality. And I've got there of a robot packing poppadoms. That's up in the northwest of England. That's been operating for over 10 years. And you all know how brittle and ununiform a poppadom is. And the robots can successfully pick those and pack them without breaking them. And I kind of argue that if we can pick and pack poppadoms successfully, then there's lots and lots of other things that we can handle without any trouble at all. So it is about that consistent quality, reducing waste and reducing rework. And ultimately, all of that leads to improved competitiveness. but it also gives you more flexibility. Robots are flexible, they're reprogrammable. So we can have quick changeovers between products. We can handle product redesign without the need to rebuild complete automation facilities. You can extend production hours. There's a company in the south east of England that makes medical parts, and they have a whole bunch of machine tools. And what they do is they operate the machine tools manually during the day, where they're making the one-offs, the very small batches, and then at night they load up the machine tools with the higher volume batches with robots to load and unload them, and they run them overnight with nobody in the factory. So they effectively get free production through the night shift. You get better use of space and energy just because you're being more efficient with it. And fairly obviously, but you do improve health and safety. Robots are typically used for the dirty, the demanding, and the dangerous kind of tasks, and therefore we're improving the health and safety of the workforce. Things like grinding, things like fettling, for example, are all jobs that have health and safety issues associated with them. And if we can automate those tasks, we're making the environment better for the workforce. And you do provide more rewarding jobs. People become programmers, people become maintenance technicians, and so on. Tasks that require more skills, and they're no longer performing those kind of manual tasks. They often get paid more for the same job. I have a quote there from Henry Ford: if you need them, don't buy it, then you will ultimately find that you paid for it but don't have it. And my take on what that means is that you're running an operation, you're spending X pounds an hour every day for the future if you don't change it. If you buy a machine to do that job, at some point you will have paid for that machine, and you'll no longer be spending the same amount of money to keep that operation going. So in the longer term, it will save you money. And this is about thinking longer term. It's not about short-term payback. It's not about thinking 1 year. It's about thinking where you want to be in 5 years' time or 10 years' time. And we need more people to have those kind of horizons to ensure that their businesses are going to be successful going forward. So where are we in the UK? This is a chart that's produced by the International Federation of Robotics. It's something that they measure called robot density. So it's a relative measure. It's the number of robots installed per 10,000 employees. And it gives us an indication of the more automated countries in the world. And if you're all busy looking for where the UK is on that chart, we're not. As it says on the right-hand side, we're actually 25th. So we're off the end of this chart. Our robot density is 98 units per 10,000 workers. We're below the world average. We're the only G20 country that isn't in the top 20 on this chart. And we're behind countries that you'd maybe expect us to be behind, places like Germany, Japan, China, and the US, for example. But there are one or two countries on here that I find surprising. And the reason I say that is that the two biggest sectors for using industrial robots are automotive, as you probably all know, but also electronics. They're a big user of industrial robots as well. And all countries that have strong electronics and automotive sectors appear quite high on this chart. So you'd expect Asia to be there. You'd expect the big car making countries to be there. One of the ones that's different is Denmark. And you will see Denmark right in the middle there. Denmark doesn't have an automotive sector. It doesn't have an electronics sector. All of their robots are in the medical device industry, the food industry, general industry. And I accept that their wage rates are significantly higher than ours, but they've demonstrated what can be done and made sure that they have a particularly productive manufacturing economy to support all the other things that they want to do. And that's really where we're failing. We need to be competitive. We need to be somewhere on that chart. So where are we really? Yes, we're starting to see changes. We're starting to growing interest from people who have not done it before. The automotive sector in the UK has been a long time user of robots, and they have fed that down the supply chain. But there are lots of other industries, lots of other sectors where we haven't yet done it. We are seeing growing interest. It's coming from the labour shortages. People have found that they cannot hire workers anymore. So We're doing a piece of work with a company in Birmingham at the moment. I won't say who it is because we've only just started, but they have a polishing job where apparently they had a 70-year-old employee who's been doing that job for years and years and years and now wants to retire. And they tried to get an apprentice to come and take over from him. The apprentice was mirroring the worker to learn what the tasks were involved. The apprentice lasted about 3 weeks, and he no longer wants to do that task. So they're now talking to us about how can they automate it, because they're fearful that they won't find anybody to do that job. And if they can't find somebody to do that job, they will lose all their business. So they need to find a way of automating it. So labor shortages is an issue. Skill shortages is an issue because you can't find people like welders anymore. And we need to automate the repetitive welding tasks so that the welders we have got are being used where we really do need their skills. And as I mentioned before, we have all sorts of supply chain challenges, which is causing people to think about bringing production back. The issue really, though, is most of these companies that are looking at it, particularly for the first time, struggle. They're fearful of going forward because they haven't done it before. It's something new. They don't have to go about procuring an automation system. They don't know how to write a user requirement specification. So they don't know how to tell the suppliers exactly what it is they want. And I also have a point that I think is very important, particularly when people are looking at collaborative robots. So these are the robots that can work alongside people. You need to be very aware of the safety implications of doing that, because not all applications are collaborative. And many people that are new to this don't necessarily understand all those kind of subtleties. So it's important that they get assistance. And lastly, but by no means least, actually just picking the right suppliers is a big challenge. There are over 40 robot vendors out there. There's more than 250 businesses that will build a robot automation system for you. And if you've never engaged in that market before, it's very difficult for you to find the right supplier to give you the right solution for your particular needs. You haven't got the time to investigate all these different businesses. And that can generate issues because you want somebody that has the right experience of dealing with your kind of application to deliver the solution you want. So a lot of users, particularly new people, are looking for support, and that's where we as the MTC come in. Our ultimate objective is to increase the adoption of automation robotics. But to do that, what we're trying to do, firstly, is by developing the solutions that address the challenges. And I have a few examples of some of those that I'll explain. So on this page, these are obviously not in your particular sectors, but hopefully you can understand where we're coming from. The first one is sorting and segregating of hazardous materials. So the picture at the top there is actually a storage area at Sellafield. And historically, they put all their waste materials into containers and then stored them. And if you can imagine that they've been doing that since about 1960 something, there are lots of containers there and they've no idea what's in them. And some of those containers are now starting to rot. And the way they have to address this is they tip the containers, the contents onto tables, and they sort them. You obviously don't want to put people in that environment, so they're using robots to do that, but they're using robots driven by people outside of the area. And what we're now doing is developing the technology so the robots have got the sensing, the vision capability to do that automatically. And what they're being faced with is a table that could have anything on it. It could have tools, it could have hard hats, it could have bits of concrete, it could have radioactive materials, it could be anything, because nobody knows what's in these containers. And effectively what we're doing is sorting contents so that we know what it is, how radioactive it is, so it can then be stored appropriately going forward. So that's building intelligence into the robot system to cope with its environment. And that kind of technology can then be used on all sorts of other industrial problems that we're trying to solve. A very different application is actually packing of strawberries, which is the other picture. And this is the first job inside the pack house, where the punnets come in from the farmer, as it were, and they have to get the weight balancing right, because when you buy a punnet of strawberries, it's got to be over the minimum weight, but they don't want to make it too much over, because that's giving us as consumers free strawberry. So they have people there who literally put strawberries in, take strawberries out to try and get above the minimum but as close as possible. And automating that is a big challenge. You might think it's easy, but the bigger challenge is actually, how do you put a strawberry into that punnet without bruising or damaging any of the existing strawberries in there? You can't just stuff it in. You've got to find the void in the punnet where you can drop that strawberry in, and it's got to be below the top of the punnet, because the next operation is the plastic seal that goes over the top. So we've got to put the intelligence in the vision system in the robot, so that it can find these voids in the punnet to put the strawberries in. So again, quite a tricky challenge to solve what is nominally a simple problem. And again, by solving that then gives us the opportunity to use that technology in many other areas. I've got a couple more examples I'll show you in a minute, but just before I leave this slide, I just want to stress, and I'll come back to this, we're also very much helping businesses to identify opportunities for automation, and then to procure the right automation solutions, and also to help the development of the automation supply chain. And the reason that's in there is, yes, there's lots of integrators out there that will build automation solutions, but they are very small businesses in the main. And if UK industry decided that it really is going to adopt automation at the same level as, let's say, the rest of Europe, the supply chain couldn't cope. So we're trying to help the supply chain get bigger and stronger to meet the needs of industry as we develop more interest and more applications that industry are taking on. So just a couple of other examples, just to give you a flavor of some of the development type work that we're doing. The Reacher project on the left of this slide is about the operation, but providing feedback to the operator. And it's the kind of thing that nuclear industry has been doing for a long time, but they spend a lot of money building their systems. And we built it with off-the-shelf equipment. So standard industrial robots, standard grippers, gaming technology to actually help the operators drive the robots around, and also with feedback, so the operator can feel what the gripper feels when it's picking up the parts. And what that's doing is allowing us to deploy robots in environments where we don't necessarily have the intelligence yet for the robot to act completely autonomously, but we want to keep people out of that environment. We're also doing a lot of work on sustainability. You may have seen Recycleye. It's a relatively new UK business that's using robots to sort domestic waste. So when you put all your mix of waste into your waste bins and they go to a recycling plant, somebody has to sort that out into tins or plastic bottles or cardboard or whatever it is. And what they're now doing is using robots with vision systems to sort that automatically. We're also working on sorting of textiles so that they can also be reclaimed. And a more more of a research project that we're doing with the University of Birmingham is actually looking at how do you disassemble electric EV batteries, because it's not it for today, but it will be a challenge in the future. When we're all driving electric vehicles, we need to be able to disassemble these batteries so that we can reclaim the materials within them. And it's actually a very dangerous task to do manually. And again, you can imagine the kind of technologies that you have to develop to be able to recycle these batteries, to figure out what it looks like, how you take it apart, particularly if it's been involved in an accident. That kind of technology is then equally applicable in all sorts of industrial applications. So hopefully that kind of gives you a flavor of some of the kind of development work that we're doing. But one of the more important things for me, at least, is how we help businesses adopt automation. How do we help businesses that want to do it but just don't know how? And I'm not going to talk through all the detail on this plan, but in simple terms, what we've put together is what we see as the key steps any business would need to go through to successfully apply automation. And if I start with the first engagement on the left, the first thing we do, and I'll just talk through the ones that are highlighted we do is what we call a line walk. Is we literally walk around the factory, and it's then about understanding whether automation is even applicable at this point in time. And by that I mean is if the factory is not very well organized, all automation is going to do is make that disorganization much worse. So sometimes you need to get better organization into the factory floor before you even think about applying automation. The second key step is then the application identification. A lot of businesses kind of want to automate the most challenging job they got in the factory. And you know, you can understand why, because that's the one that's going to give them the biggest return, as it were. But often that's the worst one to start with. It's the most challenging for a manual operation. It's probably the most challenging for a robot as well. So let's find something simple. Recognize that there's a learning curve. Let's start with a simple application, work up to the more challenging applications. It's more likely to be successful. And we can help in terms of obviously identifying the most appropriate applications. We then help businesses develop the financial case, the justification for doing that. And that's important because you need to justify the right sum of money so that you will buy the right level equipment. It's not about doing this on a shoestring, because most times if you cut corners, you're not going to get a solution that delivers what you want. So we can help develop the business case that justifies the right amount of money. As I mentioned, the user requirement specification, the request for quotation pack, we can help develop those. And again, it's not difficult, but if you've never done it before, it can be a challenge. It's important that you describe to the suppliers what you really want. They're not experts in your factory. They need help understand your issues are, how your factory works, the tolerances that you have to deal with, and so on. So we need to make sure that that's described properly. And then most importantly, we can help with the supplier shortlist and the supplier selection to make sure that you're picking the right suppliers to deliver the kind of thing that you actually want. And we take people through that journey. And one of the key things is, because we're independent, we're not pushing any particular supplier, we're not pushing any particular solution, but we're also there to educate. So we might do a lot of the work the first time we do it. When we go through a second time, we're expecting the client to have learned and to do it himself. By the third time, we hope he's completely independent. We're there to generate the expertise so people can do this themselves without our support. So, as I mentioned, it is all about the independent advice. We have the benefit of the manufacturing expertise that we have in-house, and we have experience from a wide range of different sectors as well, which gives us a perspective. You know, we've been in lots of businesses. We've seen what other people have done, which is often a challenge for many manufacturing businesses because they don't see outside their own area. We can provide advice and we can provide training to support what we're doing. And we have experience of doing it for real. Within our team, we've got people that have been there and done it on the factory floor, so they know what the challenges are. So we can provide all that support. We're also now working with a company and an organization called How To Robot. It's worth having a look. They have a platform that provides a simple and efficient way of putting your automation needs into the marketplace anonymously. So you can place on their platform a requirement, and then suppliers that are on that platform can then have the opportunity to give you price indications against that, to give you quotations against that. But as I said, it's anonymous, so they don't know who you are at this point until you get to the later stages. We're working with How To Robot because in a lot of cases, working through their platform gives you a quick and easy indication as to whether it's going to be financially viable. And if it's appropriate, we can then come in and support with some more detailed assistance as appropriate. So we work with them to make sure that we can give the right or the best solution to all of the clients that are out there. So hopefully, as a way of doing that, we can then get more and more businesses starting to use this kind of technology. And there are benefits to it. I've just got one example here. Company in the West Midlands, Aerosmith Engineering, they put a robot, a collaborative robot, as it turns out, onto the loading and unloading of one of their machine tools. It meant that they could operate like out. They could run it 24 hours a day without anybody in there. They got more throughput out of that one machine tool, which then saved them the cost of buying a second one. And I would stress, the operator wasn't made redundant. He was redeployed to something else. And as Jason said, he's a big fan of automation, and it's not about taking jobs. It's about making businesses more competitive. And most businesses that have taken on robots are more competitive and employ more people as a consequence. So it is about making businesses, giving businesses the opportunity to grow. That's just one example. There are many, many others examples throughout the UK where companies have taken on robot automation and done it successfully. I just want a little push in something that we're trying to put together, but we have an annual conference. It's on the 14th and 15th of May this year. It's not us presenting. We get speakers to present to the audience. On the 14th, we have a particular focus on SMEs and on productivity and adoption, and we will have some SMEs who have experience of applying robot automation coming to talk about their experience, the lessons they've learned, the journey that they've been through. So if anybody's interested, I would, please get in touch, because you'd be very welcome to come and listen to those speakers, because it's all very well listening to somebody like me, but listening to somebody that's done it for real with their own business is the best way of learning. And then I just want to conclude with a couple of slides. One about the future. So yes, there is a lack of labour currently, but we also have to deal with the current generations coming through school and such like. They don't want to do the mundane, the dirty, the dangerous jobs that maybe the previous generations did. They want more interesting jobs. They want more rewarding jobs. We have to replace the dull, the dirty, the dangerous tasks so that we can employ these generations coming through, where they can use the kind of IT skills, the things that they've learned in schools more productively. As I said, robot programmers, maintenance people, CAD technicians, whatever it might be, but they don't want to do the welding jobs, the machine tending jobs that previous generations have done. So we need to automate those kind of tasks. There are also robots in schools. We're seeing robots in daily life. That top picture is a VEX Robotics Schools competition. That's a global competition. It does run in the UK as well. Currently, there's about 700 schools participate in that. And if you guys know of any schools that are interested, I'd very happily put you in touch with VEX Robotics. It gets the children interested in robotics. And I should say it starts at primary school and goes through to secondary school. It's not only getting them interested in robotics, it gets them interested in engineering. Robotics is one of those subjects that gets the children excited, and we need to get more and more of them. I'm sure you're well aware we need to get more engineers coming through the system. So I'm a great fan of things like VEX Robotics, because if we can get the children excited about robotics, we stand a chance of them staying with it and becoming engineers at the end of their education period. But ultimately, they are more used to technology, much more than people like me. When I was at school, we only just started using calculators. We didn't have mobile phones, we didn't have computers, none of that stuff. Whereas children today, they're brought up with it. To them, it's normal. And therefore, robots are not alien to them. To them, it's more normal. And the bottom picture is a robot vacuum cleaner. More and more people have got robot vacuum cleaners in their houses. Great. They're not very good at stairs, by the way, if anybody's thinking about it. But other than that, they're very good. But people are used to seeing this kind of technology. If you go into Milton Keynes, you'll see delivery robots driving around Milton Keynes, delivering product from shops to people's houses. People are going to start seeing this technology more and more in their daily life. And they're going to expect to see it in their working life as well. So we are expecting major growth, particularly in the SMEs, particularly in the UK, because SMEs make up 90+% of UK manufacturing. And that's where we expect to see more and more robots coming in. But we're also expecting to see major growth in other sectors, healthcare, construction, general infrastructure, agriculture, because they also have significant labor shortages. And we're going to start seeing robots coming through in many, many different sectors. And then just to conclude, I've got a quote there. Well, it's not a quote as such. It's the top line there. The problem for the UK labour market is not that we have too many robots in the workplace, but we have too few. That's one of my favourite quotes, I must admit. It's actually from a study that the Bayes Energy and Industrial Strategy Committee commissioned on the automation of the future of work back in 2019. That is the very first line of that report, which for me is quite something. And that's from the politicians. So if they're starting to accept the fact that robots are important and we haven't got enough, then there's a chance that we'll get the message through. I don't want to get too political, but Rachel Reeves was chair of that committee when that report was produced. I will be trying to make sure that if they do win the election, and she is Chancellor of the Exchequer, we'll make sure she gets to see that to remind her that she thinks there aren't enough robots. But hopefully that will help us. But ultimately, it is about UK manufacturing be competitive. We want it to grow. We want it to be successful. And that requires greater use of flexible automation. I should say the conditions are reasonably good. You can get finance. There are capital allowances available. R&D tax credits can be used for the application of automation, not for buying the equipment, but maybe for the study work that you have to do. So you have to be clever about it, but you can get some of the money back. So, and you can get loans from the banks. They're willing to support this kind of technology. The technology is proven. That's one of the benefits of maybe being behind the rest of the world, is lots of applications have been done. So there are lots of things that can be done within our UK sector, and there is government support. The Made Smarter programme will provide the initial support to get people going in this kind of space. So it is worth finding out if Made Smarter is relevant. It isn't currently across the whole country, but it is across certain areas of the country. And ultimately, to me, it's about working smarter, not harder. That quote right at the bottom, sweat the assets, not the people, that was actually a bank manager said that to one of his aerospace clients. It was an SME that was making aerospace components, and the owner went to the bank manager and said, I can't grow anymore. My business has plateaued. I don't know how, I can't figure out how to get more work through this business. And basically his bank manager said to him, sweat the assets, not the people, invest in the equipment, give the tools that the workforce need so that they can do their jobs more efficiently. And as I said, work smarter, not harder. Thank you very much. I hope that was of interest, and I'm very happy to take any questions anybody might have. Thank you.
Right, thank you, super. Thank you very much, Mike. Yeah, I think that was really interesting, and I mean, I was just at another lecture yesterday where we were talking with a business, a foundry business in this case, inevitably, who are using a lot of. They're trying to automate scanning for upgrading of castings, and then integrate the fettling and the upgrading of said castings using sort of robotics tooling, the fettling, grinding, which is hard, heavy, hot, uncomfortable, sort of dusty work, but actually doing it with a robot in an enclosed cell, and trying to make an iterative loop out of that. And I think they've been working with the MTC on that as well. So you probably know the company up in Todmorden who are doing that. But a lot of investment going in there. But actually, as you say, it's about working smarter and actually replacing people, allowing their people to do more interesting and more exciting jobs rather than replacing the people per se. So, I mean, I guess there's a few comments in the chat as well. We are actually working, the founders are supporting a robotics club at a school already in the sort of Bedfordshire, I think it is, area. So we're certainly trying to engage, albeit in a relatively small way in that. Because I was going to ask you really about what you see the barriers are in the UK. Why are we a bit, considerably behind some countries and behind, in fact, most companies to some degree? And, you know, is it to do with, you know, do we need to do more in schools and universities? And Mark, who's on the line from Birmingham City University, who's is very keen to engage and to support, not a million miles away from you, obviously, but I think the facility at the MTC is excellent as well in terms of being able to showcase and demonstrate. And you've got some low entry point projects, haven't you? Which is, you know, it's very different to the university sector. It's very applied, very close to industry. So yeah, I mean, on the barriers side of things, I mean, what can we either as the founders associate, you know, founders company do, or as the trade association to try and make your job easier and make our people's jobs easier, actually, because if they're using more robotics, their jobs are going to be easier.
Yes, I think a lot of it is down to perceptions. So people are they've seen robots in the automotive sector. They kind of get that car plants will use lots of robots, but they haven't necessarily seen robots in use in their types of businesses. So there's a perception that it's kind of complicated, it's risky, it's expensive, and some of that was true in the past. It's no longer true. There are lots of small businesses that are applying robots very successfully, and it's more about taking the challenge. I went to see a company in Willenhall in Wolverhampton a couple of weeks ago that makes wheelbarrows, and you know, with all due respect, a wheelbarrow is a relatively simple product. You know, you wouldn't kind of think that as a high-tech business, and it's not particularly a high-tech business. They've got 20 robots in that factory, and they're using the robots for the manufacture of the wheelbarrows, and they're very successful at it, and that's allowed them to keep the business in the UK. And to be competitive, supplying the likes of B&Q and Screwfix and so on. And you kind of think, well, if we can do that successfully, and if a wheelbarrow company can do it successfully, there are lots of businesses that can do it successfully. And I think that's the key to it. It's about just making that first step. And I think that's the key, where it's important to either engage with people like the MTC, but somebody that's independent, so that you get the right advice up front. Because making that first step is always, you know, a bit tricky. You know, I don't want to talk for the people in the audience, but there are, you know, we hear stories that a lot of SMEs are always nervous about engaging with the automation providers because they don't want to be sold the wrong solution. They don't want to be persuaded into spending a lot of money to do the wrong thing. And I get that, which is why it's, you know, we can be very helpful, because we have no axe to grind. You know, if automation isn't the right answer, we're going to tell you. You know, we're not there to sell it. You're not going to
lose any business out of that. No. You're not going to lose a sale, effectively, are you? So that's really useful to do. And I must say, you know, from our side, from the Trade Association, we have, you know, invited Mike to come and talk to some of our groups as well, to try and encourage that. And I think there's some comments in the chat as well about the MAC exhibition, and we'll be there as well. So if anybody wants, that's the 15th to the 19th of April at the NEC. So if anybody wants to come along and see what everybody's up to in engineering and manufacturing, that's an excellent way to do, you know, to see what's on show and what's happening in industry. But also, you know, our association, our federation, has got a stand there as well. So we'll be there if anyone wants to come by and say hello. I know we had a question right at the start as well from John Wood. John, do you want to ask a question yourself? It was about soft robots. He said we hear a lot about soft robots. I don't hear a lot about soft robots. I don't know what soft robots are, so maybe I'm moving in the wrong circles, but that was the question. And how important are they? John, are you there? Do you want to jump in on that?
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. Well, I pick this up as I go around universities around the world. This is about the interface really between humans and robots, and how they work together rather than just having them do an automated procedure. And I just wonder how important they are in manufacturing.
Well, I think soft robots are really still in the university space. I don't think they've got through to the point where they're being applied in pretty much any industry. They do have potential. We currently have collaborative robots. They're not soft, but they will stop in the event that somebody gets in the way. Soft robots, if you like, are the extension of that, in that they're soft. They won't hurt you if they hit you, but they are constrained in how much they can carry. They're constrained in how fast they can go, and they're not a proven machine yet that can be applied in industry. So I don't think they've got to manufacturing yet, but I'm sure one day they will. I just wouldn't like to put a timescale on it.
Can I add something there, Mike? To add to that, John, as a visiting professor at Cranfield University, you can see some soft robots in the Aerospace Integration Research Centre. We've been working with Airbus and Rolls-Royce on using soft robots manufacturing, and Professor Phil Webb, who's I think quite well known in the automation field, is working on soft robots. We also have an MSc on robotics, which I think Mike knows about as well. We try and educate people in robotics at a master's level. But you can come and see some soft robots if you want to pop into Cranfield. It's not very far from you, is it?
Okay, Mike. Okay, Mark, I'll give you a buzz. Can I?
Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody else wants to come back to Cranfield, I know you all came about 4 years ago, but there's been, even now there's more changes. So there's other
significant developments. Yeah, no, that's a helpful offer. I say, well, there's lots of invites there, Mark, in the chat for you to sort of hook up with people.
Can I butt in here? Because
of course, yeah.
We have, through our education committee, Mike, we do have a major activity in robotics in schools. This is a school in Hoddesdon, Hertfordshire, which we're with past master 250 years ago or so. And it's had immense effect on certainly bringing kids from disadvantaged backgrounds into science and engineering, but also bringing women in as well. And we found when we've now cascaded that down to a couple of primary schools, it's mainly the girls that get involved. And the number of students doing further maths and all that has gone shooting up. And so we're now working with the Harper Trust, which is a major charity in Bedfordshire, to cascade this out by buying the guy out that we work with. I just wonder whether we can't set up a national initiative in getting schools to get involved. Okay, Mark.
Can I add to that? Because the EDI stream for Transfire is absolutely, it's being run by Sue Black, because she's a computer scientist, and we actually had oh God, what's her name? Shaney, I think she's in the Royal Academy of Engineering, maybe she's not. The broadcaster and writer who writes on mechanical engineering and EDI. We were talking about this exactly the same this morning. It is a way to get it certainly into the lower, let's say, heavy industries, the computation, the cyber, cyber security, the cyber physical boundary, this robotics and humans, is a way to get more women into these heavier industries, I would suggest, and the programming of them, but also the running of them. I mean, you don't have to be a hairy-arsed foundryman to work in a a factory. You can use robotics to help you, and that was one of the major things I think that's going to help change the gender disparity that there is across most of these heavier industries that I think Mike would agree with. But it's certainly a way of attracting women as well, I think.
Thank you. Do you want to comment on that, Mike? And then we'll come to Mark, who's got a question as well, I think.
Very quickly, I completely agree with everything you've just said, and that's one of the reasons why I'm very much in favour, and it's great to hear that you guys are also getting involved. So if we could maybe connect up separately, I'd love to have a conversation about that, because it's something I want to try and grow, and as you say, a national program, because I think it's got so much potential and benefit for all industries. We should be doing more of it.
Well, it's so important, the competitiveness aspect. That's certainly our interest as well. And I mean, fortunately, our foundries are not dirty or dangerous, and they're certainly not dull. But that doesn't mean we can't do more improve all that. So, Mark, I'll come to you next. You had got your hand up, I think, and Mark, I think your Mark Jolly's got a legacy hand up, I think, unless you've got another point to make.
No, sorry, it's legacy, definitely legacy.
Mike, thank you. That was just wonderful. One fun thing, one serious thing. I saw a video last week of robots doing street food in South Korea.
I haven't seen that, but I could believe it. Yes,
it is astonishing, and it just proves your graph really that you started the talk with. I teach at Birmingham City University in the engineering department, and I'm not sure if you've had contact with us. We're touching a lot with on robotics. It's not my field. However, I know my students and colleagues, we're great in the lab, but it's that transformation, that connection with any type of industry. And Pam's been to see what we do. And I would love to invite you to BCU to start with, but if you could come in, but it's that connecting what's in the lab, what's in the university to industry, because there is still some universities, we want to connect with industry, but don't quite really want to do it. And the other way around, it's that sort of thing. It's the unsaid elephant in the room, isn't it? Sometimes,
yeah.
you know, don't you?
Oh yes, and I've never been to Birmingham City Uni, but do you guys have a relationship with the Greater Birmingham Solihull IoT?
I don't know, and this is why it's great to talk to you.
Okay, so can we maybe again, if we could connect, if Pam
Absolutely,
or
I can
Eloise
do any
can join all this up.
facilitating. Yeah, I can do any facilitating because or Eloise, we've all got the contacts of the various people. So there's obviously some school stuff that we're doing that I think is useful. And John's made the point here that the John Warner School that we were mentioning became national champions in the robotics competition and 8th worldwide. So I suppose the point there is there's a model that works, isn't there? It's sort of a proven model. And Gemma, who's on the line as well, has said that the Welding Institute, PWI, over in Cambridge, are very happy to any initiatives along that, so we can clock that more generally in terms of the founders, but also anything that you're doing in terms of wider outreach. I mean, I guess it's bandwidth, and it's making sure that we focus on the right things and build up really organically, isn't it, and make things that are sustainable, which is really important. Yes. So yeah, I think they've been useful. I can't see any other hands up at the moment. Or any more comments or chat. So sorry, go on.
It's Alan Muir. Can I just ask a question in the sense of turning the subject around a little bit? You mentioned that one of I thought one of the most illuminating parts of your presentation was the need to guide people through how to get to understand what it is they really point them in the direction of the right suppliers and what have you. But is there also a way of encouraging industries which are already actually quite adept at using robots to go further?
Yes.
I'm just thinking whether the robot industry really needs to also be encouraged to be rather proactive in going after industries where their know-how rather than trying to break into new ground. And I mean, one of the things I'm always fascinated by, you see on TV, food processing. I mean, food processing is incredibly automated. And, so clearly everybody has gone in that direction, maybe spurred on by the ease of hygiene controls in that industry. But I just wonder whether there is organizations like MTC concentrating their own efforts sometimes on industries which have to be receptive already, because there's plenty of other people already.
I'm sorry that I think I got the gist because the signal's not very good. But yes, that we do That's where some of the development work that we do comes in, because we're solving problems that are not currently commercially available. So we're trying to make sure that applications are being developed that can then extend the use of robots. I'm going to disagree slightly on the food industry, because yes, it's very automated, but it actually employs more people than any other manufacturing sector in the UK. It employs more than auto and aerospace put together, and there are still lots and lots of jobs in the food sector that could be automated that have not yet been done. And the automation that they put in,
you know, they realise they can't continue that.
Yeah, well, they've got to the point now because they can't get the labour in lots of cases. So you know, that's one of the areas, one of the sectors that we're pushing quite hard in, is to try and help the food sector apply more robotics, because they've done what they've done, but they've not necessarily moved into robots, because they see that as a kind of new challenging technology, and they need. That's where we provide them with the assistance to make sure that they're trying to automate the things that can be automated. And some of it's really basic stuff. It's things like palletizing. And that's a very standard application. And there's still lots of food businesses that have got people at the end of the production line putting boxes on pallets.
Yeah, I think you're right as well. It's that sort of I think case studies, examples where people can see it. And if you can see it, you can be it. They use it in careers, but it's the same with this. If you can see an opportunity. So BCU is apparently a member of the IoT. So there we are. That's an answer to that question, Mark, I think. So I think to say we could join up there. Mark, you've got your hand up. Is that a legacy hand, or did you want to make another point? Yeah.
It's not Mark Jolly's legacy hand.
No, it's your own current hand. Yeah.
Just please, may I ask you both, Pam and Mike, if I could use your slides and your talk to show my colleagues as soon as I can, because this is something we've been looking at. I'd love to invite you in, but if I could use this talk tonight, it'd be great for a meeting I've got tomorrow. Perfect timing.
Okay, well, I don't know how quickly we can get it to you, but we can get the slides to you, I think. I don't know how quickly Eloise will be able to be recording. So conscious of the time, it's just about 8 o'clock now. So thank you, everybody, for listening in. I know some of you obviously have been involved in the Founders for a long time. Hopefully this has been an interesting evening for you, and I'd encourage you to join future events, or even come along to some of the dinners and events that are held at the hall as well. Then our next Whitechapel lecture is in April. It's actually not online, this one as well. It's going to be an in-person event in London, and again really building on some links with the school, not around automation but really around foundry, casting, art and sculpture. So hopefully that'll be really interesting. Well, again, it's trying to get kids into making stuff and seeing how things are made and being creative and just getting involved in all sorts of things. So thank you very much, Mike, for giving up your time to both prepare and to present tonight. Thank you, Eloise, for organising everything this evening and facilitating for us. I think if we could give you a round of applause, we would do. So we'll just give you a virtual one, Mike. And thank you very much, everybody, for joining. And I hope to see you all soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.